Merry Christmas to you. We are going through the Christmas story verse by verse from Luke 1:1 all the way to when Jesus is presented in the temple and circumcised. And this is incredibly important because everything that we've seen about the Christmas story our whole lives has a lot of pieces missing to it. And a lot of things we think are true are actually not true. And we started this series with how important it is to fully understand what it is that led up to it and what took place in that moment and why it took place. So we can fully really appreciate, not understanding why we give presents and have a Christmas tree, but understanding how God redeemed mankind to establish his kingdom on earth as it is in heaven. And what we talked about is, again, the very first thing that Luke talked about was how important it is to understand a full account of this. And then we saw why the parents of John the Baptist, were presented with such an incredible gift of John the Baptist. And we're just going to pick it up there where Zacharias is now his lot was called to burn the incense all night. So it was that while he was serving as priest before God in the order of the divisions, according to the custom of the priesthood, his lot fell to burn incense when he went into the temple of the Lord. And the whole multitude of the people was praying outside at the hour of the incense. Then an angel of the Lord appeared to him, standing on the right side of the altar of incense. And when Zacharias saw him, he was troubled, and fear fell upon him. But the angel said to him, "Do not be afraid, Zacharias, for your prayer is heard, and your wife Elizabeth will bear you a son, and you shall call his name John." All right, I'm going to pause there because this moment is extremely important. This moment was prophesied by Daniel. The beginning of this moment was prophesied. This is the beginning of the moment that was prophesied by Daniel when he said another Elijah is coming. And what we're seeing here is, first, Zacharias and Elizabeth are, he's a priest. She is of the order of Aaron. They're righteous. They obey the commandments. They fear the Lord. And what's taking place here is his lot was drawn to burn the incense. So it was that while he was serving as priest before God in the order of the division, according to the custom of the priesthood, his lot fell to burn incense when he went into the temple of the Lord. And the whole multitude of people was praying outside at the hour of incense. Then the angel of the Lord appeared to him, standing on the right side of the altar of incense. And when Zacharias saw him, he was troubled, and fear fell upon him. But the angel said to him, "Do not be afraid, Zacharias, for your prayer is heard. And your wife Elizabeth will bear you a son, and you shall call his name John." Now, I want to kind of talk about what it is about why his prayer was heard and answered in this moment. One, it's the hour of incense. Two, there's a multitude praying. But three, it is his prayer that was heard. Specifically, the angel said to him, "Do not be afraid, Zacharias, for your prayer is heard." His prayer is heard, because I guarantee the people that were praying outside were not praying, give Zacharias a child. They were praying for whatever they were praying for. Maybe his friends were praying for him too somewhere in there, but I'm just saying that I'm pretty sure they're praying for their own stuff. It was his prayer that was heard. And his prayer was heard because of his righteousness, because of his fear of the Lord, because of all these things. It's the way that he was obedient to the Lord. He was blameless in God's eye. I mean, it literally says in 6, and they were both righteous before God, walking in all commandments and ordinances of the Lord, blameless. This is incredibly important that we understand, what is that? Like, what is this thing? What is this thing that God has done, and why did he do it? He did it, one, because it was prophesied from the very beginning that this kind of thing would happen. So it was going to happen. But why Zacharias? And it also feeds to this idea that, they were she was barren and they were old. Like, they had been praying for a child this whole time, but God had to hold that blessing from them specifically for this time and purpose. And I just want to kind of plead to your heart that when you're praying for things, you have to know, number one, God's timing is way better than yours, and just to keep praying, keep praying. Don't give up on it. Just keep praying and keep praying and keep praying. They're old and their prayer is finally answered. But the other piece is you can't just sit there and be breaking the law, just be lawless. Then you're like the lawless ones. God is not going to honor that. Like, you can't just sit there and be breaking laws and then be like, oh God, give me this thing or save me, Lord. You can't do that. I mean, think about it for just a second. I look at God as if he is my father. And if your father was sitting there, or if you were a father, let's talk about you being a mother or father. If you were a parent and your child was just constantly breaking rules, like you'd be like, don't do this thing, and then they did that thing. Don't touch that, and then they broke it. Like, you wouldn't sit there and go, okay, now that you're asking for things, let me go ahead and give you those things. In order to show them that it is not okay to be breaking the rules, punishment comes. Those who don't punish their children hate their children. So if God was just going to answer your prayer when you're breaking all the laws of God, then he technically hates you. And we know that he loves the heck out of you. He loves you so much, it's ridiculous how much. He loves you so much that he's doing this thing. He's willing to become human and lay down his life for you. He's not going to sit there and just answer your prayers because of your unrighteousness and unwillingness to obey the law. So, I'm just pleading to your heart that if you have things you're crying out to God for, it starts with repentance. It starts with repentance.